Are you using AI every day? Are you vibe coding all the way to success? Or are you like me and you're not really working on your business, you're just building a graveyard of broken tools? Right now, probably 90% of founders are drowning in AI shiny object syndrome. You spin up 50 agents, you vibe coded an MVP, now you got a Slack bot, a Notion bot, a Whisper Flow knockoff, and a chat bot that can't even reset a password. And nothing actually works that well, so maybe AI isn't making me more productive, it's making me more delusional. You became a full-time AI babysitter burning tokens at 2 a.m. And when you say we're an AI company, you're really not saying anything because everybody is. By the end of this year, the unique flex will be saying we don't use AI. So are all these tools serving your vision, or are you serving the tool? Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes, and today my guests are Mike and Justin from Cause of a Kind. In this episode, you'll learn 3 things that will change how you build. Number 1, why AI plus workflow plus domain expertise is the only formula that survives in the next 12 months, and why your AI wrapper will get cloned 30 days without it. Number 2, the brutal truth about vibe coding, why your good enough prototype becomes a maintenance nightmare that costs you more than hiring a pro from day 1. And number 3, the delusional confidence playbook these guys use to go from 7,000 to 160,000 YouTube subscribers in 5 months, and why distribution beats product every single time. Now, if you want the unfair advantage every week, head to aiforfounders.co and join the newsletter. It's where smart founders like you steal smart ideas before their competitors wake up. It's free to join, impossible to ignore, and dangerous if you actually use it. And if this hits you in the gut, leave a review because the algorithm only feeds podcasts that founders might actually fight for. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did with Mike and Justin. Let's go. All right, Justin, Mike, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ryan.
Yeah, super stoked. We're going to be talking about your company, Cause of a Kind. And I also want to give a shout out right from the beginning about your podcast, because I just recorded a podcast with Mike. I believe the channel is called Strictly From Nowhere, but it was for the CTO Confidential show on there, and had an absolute great time. One, I love interviewing podcasters because I know their connection and audio is going to be great. But also, you know, as a podcaster myself, it's my job to like really bring out the best in the guests as best I can, so I don't get to tell my stories as much. So having that opportunity on Mike's show was great. If you guys want to hear more about me and what I'm up to, definitely go check out Strictly From Nowhere. I was a guest last week, so you can probably find it. Right now, it's like May 13th. So I want to say thank you for that. And let's just dive right in. Let's talk about Cause of a Kind. Maybe kind of explain your work and kind of who your customers are.
Sounds great. I'll take us from the top, and Mike and I are good dance partners, so we'll just go back and forth on most things here, Ryan. But yeah, dude, it's a pleasure. You know, Strictly From Nowhere is definitely new in our world. That's the network television, and CTO Confidential is just one of the shows that we produce in that network TV episode. So yeah, man, happy to have you on my show too. That'll be fun. But let's talk a little bit about Cause of a Kind. You know, Mike and I have been friends since we're 15 years old. We're like old rock climbing buddies. That's how our friendship started, on a local rock climbing gym that we still go back to, that we host events at. You know, everything that we do is kind of got a backstory and a little bit of an Easter egg if people pull back the layers. And so since we're 15 years old, we've always been in pursuit of creativity and building things. And we both have related skill sets. Mike went into a career more technical in nature. My career was more in business development, client services, and marketing. So combined, we make a full business brain. A long time ago, after college, we kind of came together. I don't even remember like what the actual impetus was of our first software idea, but we didn't start with Cause of a Kind. We started with a business called Membo, and Membo was really to make Main Street loyalty programs. Think of that, you go to your coffee shop and you get like a little rewards program. It was made to make Main Street a accumulated or a combined rewards experience. And so doesn't exist today yet still. And so maybe we'll return back to that idea. But when we tried to build that, we didn't have as much knowledge as we had today. We didn't have the repetitions that we had. We were just trying to build something and exist in the world. And man, that was a hard sell, going business to business on Main Street and trying to actually sell this product. So as luck would have it, we shut that down. We tried to move into other things that we would build, always trying to build software, always trying to build web experiences. I'll shortcut it by saying along the way, we realized that other people wanted us to build their dreams. And so that's how the agency was really born. You know, along the way, where did the name come from, Cause of a Kind? Mike and I were in the surf lineup after getting beat up after trying to build a couple businesses along the way. And we were just like, well, what the heck would we want to do? And what about if we built one-of-a-kind experiences for causes that we care about? And at the time, in the surf lineup, it was like, what would somebody pay to a charity to have a surf session with Kelly Slater, just as an example. And so there's how the business was born, one-of-a-kind experiences for causes that we care about. We would link those causes to an organization. In this case, it was the Surf Rider Foundation, which we were fond of. And so that's how the idea was born. But we quickly realized we were getting outpaced by a little old company, an incumbent called Omaze. I'm sure people have heard of that. And so abandoned ship, turned into an apparel company, went down e-commerce's path. And so we started making one-of-a-kind single production runs of apparel, specifically t-shirts, all backed by causes and missions that we cared about. All sorts of different like land preservation funds or,
Surf Rider, right?
Surf Rider was a big one. Animal rescue.
1% for the planet. Yeah, there was a bunch. World Wildlife Foundation.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. So, that's really a hard category. Building apparel and finding your way, that is an amazingly hard category. It's cash intensive. We were like totally out of our depth in trying to build a business. And so along the way, right, people just started asking us, can we build stuff for them? And that's how the agency was really born. It was following opportunity. It's a big part of our rhetoric today is follow opportunity and become passionate about what comes in front of you. It's how our careers unfolded. It's how our lifestyles have come our way. It's really about pursuing opportunity and becoming passionate about the things that come your way. And so that's how the business was born 10 years ago now in June.
Brilliant. I love that. I have a very similar story, and I think anybody who's kind of on a bootstrapper mission should maybe use that as the model, because, when I was kind of my foray into kind of technology startups, it was like same thing. I had this idea for an app and I went to a developer at the time. It probably would have cost $750,000. And, I'm thinking like, maybe I do a raise, maybe I pass the hat for friends and family. And I was working with a great consultant and they're like, Ryan, well, we can build this. We can make that happen. How are you going to sell it? And I was like, what do you mean?
Right.
The Field of Dreams sale, right?
Yeah, exactly. You build it, they will come. And so I was like, oh, okay. I need to figure out how I can sell products before I launch my own thing because it's just too much of a risk. As far as for me. And so, it's very similar, 10-year journey to really figure out go-to-market and repeatable sales process and building companies and building services before I felt really confident to like start releasing my own products because I had at least enough confidence or like misguided confidence to think that like, okay, there's a roadmap here and I have a series of validations that I know I won't get in over my skis too far if it's not going to work. So yeah, that's a great model. So let's talk about where Cause of a Kind is now, kind of the kind of projects you're working on and like what kind of customers you like to work with.
Mike, you want to take that one?
Quick side note for founders who are using AI to write content. You've probably noticed this. It's incredibly fast, but it doesn't really drive meaningful traffic. And honestly, that's because most AI-generated content is just average. There's no real insight, no depth, no structure. Missing things like internal linking, and Google's getting very good at filtering that out. So instead of trying to just prompt better, I actually came across something interesting called Nina. It's a system that combines human strategy and review with AI writing to create high-quality, SEO-optimized blog content that's actually designed to rank and keep ranking. What I like about it is that it's done for me. Their team handles the topic strategy and the content review and data markups for Google and turns blog posts into actual long-term traffic assets. So if you're a founder thinking seriously about organic growth, this is one of those things worth paying attention to. You can check it out at trynina.co. That's TRYNINA.co, trynina.co. Every week I sit down and ask myself one question. What do founders actually need to know about AI right now? Not the think pieces or the stuff that sounds impressive, the real useful put it to work today stuff. Then I write it up, send it to you in your inbox free. That newsletter is called AI for Founders, and I built it because I was tired of wading through hit pieces and people that are afraid of the future. Each issue, I break down the tools worth your time, the strategies that are working, and the ways you can use AI to grow your company without burning out or getting left behind. Thousands of founders read it every week, and I'd love for you to be one of them. Subscribe for free at aiforfounders.co. 3 seconds to sign up, and I promise it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done this a few different ways over the years. I think that we've evolved the model, so to speak. Our earliest customers tended to be websites, a lot of websites, e-commerce, and like kind of these kind of really nice, these very beautiful web experiences. We had a couple of big names early on that we had worked with through connections that we had. That gradually grew into more software plays. I think the big item that we landed was with the Hospital for Special Surgery here in New York. That was the deal that allowed us to quit our job. And it was actually our foray into like medical software, really kind of a much tougher build. And we really, what we were looking for, and it was the thing that made us say, okay, we could make this real now, because websites were quite commoditized, to be honest. That was really a great way to get started as a no-name kind of brand, but application development is really where we wanted to be. And from there, we gradually started getting more startups. There was a lot of innovation going on at that time. This was like during COVID, just coming out of COVID in that kind of haze. And that was really working well for us. And then gradually, we had to start evolving even further, like to where we are today, because the bottom dropped out on a lot of startup investment around the end of 2023. And we had to find ways to help our startups do what you were talking about, not just build, but maintain funding, get funding. And that's where fractional CTO started to come into play, which was a lot of investors would not invest in a founder that was building with an agency. So we evolved the model, and I said, well, I could be your fractional CTO and step in and help fill those shoes while you either A, find someone, or if you never find someone, I'm happy to continue that journey with you. And, it allows them to keep equity, it allows them to have a cost savings on the CTO because it's fractionalized, but we also bring our team. And so there's some advantages there in that you don't have to hire and deal with the gelling process and that kind of thing. I already had that behind us. And then AI revolution starts to happen. And in between there's the crypto revolution. I'll just skip that because that was the revolution that never was. And so that kind of did one of these and just died off. But AI kind of really started to change to where, if you look at our site today, we focus very much on modernizing software. There was a big push now to implement AI, but a lot of companies are not ready for it. They have not upgraded their practices. They have kind of fallen behind on things. If you're a small to mid-sized business, suddenly building bespoke software became available to you. So instead of this focus on building SaaS products and startups in that nature, we're really looking almost at as more of a consultancy where we're going to come in and a consultancy that does. So instead of doing kind of a McKinsey where we leave you with a white paper of things you should do, it's let's go in and figure out where your software is at, what you need to do to implement AI. Are there things we could build today? Or are there innovative products that you want to build, potentially share, like to release as a SaaS product? We have businesses that want to do that right now. But we also have people who are just like, hey, I need to get off of things, or I need to integrate these 4 things together. I never thought it was possible before. We have a quote from 3 years ago. What can we do now? And so now we're kind of bringing all that together around fractional CTO, not for the sake of pitching, but for actually helping you revolutionize your software, your business in a way that you didn't see before.
Amazing. And I'd love to get your take too, because I talk to dozens and dozens of founders all the time, and they're either like, we need an AI story, or we need an AI transformation, or we need to be AI native. And so I always kind of go deep into what is that, and everybody has kind of a different response. Nobody really knows, of like, we need a chatbot in the corner, or are we just trying to bolt on something, or how do we get fully integrated with AI workflows and maybe AI solutions in our companies? So maybe from what you guys are seeing working with customers, like what does that mean for a company?
Yeah, that's another interesting one, because I have a unique take. I'm probably a unique take on this, because I think that the scars of Web3 are still with me, in that everybody kind of had to do this thing where they said, we're going to pretend to be a Web3 company. And then we would get under the hood. And I'm like, there's actually no Web3 here. They're like, yeah, but we have intentions. And but we just need this to raise the money. And I would caution people against this idea of using AI just like, oh, we're an AI company because we need it to raise the money. Because I think that those are very short-lived things in time, in that I think that AI is quickly becoming quite commoditized in the sense that people ask us, are you an AI first agency? Who isn't? Who isn't using this stuff? You're not going to be able to say that for very long. That by the end of this year, I think that if you will have to come out as we're a hand coding agency, that would be a unique proposition, which is, hey, if you're like, and I guarantee you an agency will do this. Maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe we'd even do it, which is I'm working in a space that is not allowing AI. Now you're the unique player for that game. But there's no uniqueness to saying, hey, we're AI or we're a AI chatbot bolt-on. In fact, we have a number of startups that we've tried to use AI for the thing that they're trying to build. And I think of like some of our fintech customers and accounting customers. And the current kind of LLM doesn't quite work because of its non-deterministic nature. These are spaces where you need deterministic output. You can't run a series of financial reports and get a different result every time, or even have the potential for a different result every time. That doesn't mean that AI doesn't play into, one, the construction of the software, or two, certain features, which is maybe turning natural language into a deterministic query or product or output. That is very much, I think, on the table, but it's very hard to say we're AI native, AI first, because a lot of folks are, I think what folks really want in those spaces is ML, which is that traditional, hey, we want to build our own, which is still really pretty expensive, or somewhat expensive, or you have a data problem then. You haven't collected enough data to actually build this. So I think getting the most out of general purpose LLMs is an incredible future. I think there's definitely going to be a future where companies come forward and say, hey, we do have ML models for this type of fintech or med tech or things like that, that specialized models that's going to bring these things together. But the push to need to be AI native, it reminds me a little bit of this Web3 thing. And I also worry that people are building things that can be knocked off very easily. So if all you are is like a context call to ChatGPT, that's very hard, because if you get any kind of market position or any kind of traction behind that, 3 or 4 competitors are immediately not, come in and steal that. So I think it has to be AI plus workflow plus domain knowledge. When I see a founder that has that, that's the magic spot. These founders with incredible domain knowledge in very complicated niche kind of domains, like one of our founders is in accounting for the film industry, had a whole career, and what we're building would not be knockoffable. We have another customer that's in auto sales, and they have incredible connections in this very tight, very high regulation environment where it's not so easy to just build an AI wrapper. We have a ton of AI tools in there, but all those workflows, you had to kind of be the guy on the inside. And I look for that as like a very, very key in finding a founder that's a great partner for us.
I love that. Repeat that criteria again.
I think that if you have a ton of you have AI, workflow, and domain knowledge, incredible domain knowledge, those 3 things come together to build really good products that are very hard to knock off / vibe code out of the market.
Yeah. And the domain expertise really usually comes with distribution baked in. Because if you're that qualified, then you usually understand that market very well. So when you are going to market, you can pick up your first customer, your first 10 customers pretty quickly, at least to test it.
Exactly right. And a lot of times, if you're going for enterprise levels, which people are going for increasingly now, how to get in that room, it's so much easier if you have friends. If you're going to rely on crazy cold emails, good luck in today's world to try and get in those rooms.
Yeah. I'm really interested now too on like what's going to make a successful product today and then moving into the future. And usually I just use my own kind of gut intuition, largely because I mostly sell to people like me. So, for me right now, it's like, I want AI just to work automatically. I don't want to go to some other platform at this point. Anytime I have to create a new username and a new thing and a blah, 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 and a new dashboard, I hate it. I do it kicking and screaming, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So what I'm really interested in is products that are introducing, their service or ultimately just the outcome you're looking for on platforms I'm already in. So, I see a bunch of really cool tools happening in Slack. I see a bunch of cool tools happening in the inbox, like basically creating environments to have success where people already are. Are you getting a lot of that? Or maybe a better question, what are you seeing is going to kind of tee up success over the next couple of years when people are building novel AI tools?
Yeah, that's an interesting. So for a lot of that, I think most people are building that stuff themselves. So that's a good example where we have had some deals where people are like, I need a Slack bot, I need this, that. What I actually find for us, like from a marketing perspective, and Justin, you could kind of jump in on this, which is the idea that it's better to almost train people to get that as far as they can forward. And then, like you said, what's the next thing? Because they inevitably hit the wall where they're like, all right, now I'm at a point where this is not so easy. I have a particularly complex workflow or something that's not getting me where I need to, and I need a professional. And that level happens pretty quickly for a lot of people. And you really don't want all the deals below that level anyway, because they end up being, they're not ongoing. They end up being these quick hits. So I think what's going to happen is there are more complex workflows that we're going to demand of agents that we haven't even realized yet. And what you have is a lot of founders like yourself doing these things, like I'm orchestrating agents, kind of telling people how the work is done. But this goes against the conventional business wisdom, which is you need to tell your employees, whether they be robots or people, what you want done. The how is not really important. When this is like the conventional idea of give your employees more autonomy, learn to delegate. What you're finding is a lot of founders now, they're very enamored by AI. They're not delegating anymore. They're doing. And even myself is almost like becoming a bad CTO by getting back in the coding game because I can. And it's allowing me to behave very inefficiently. And I think at some point we're going to have to cross that hump and say, wait a minute, I need to go back to being an entrepreneur and selling and do it. I juice this lemon as far as I can, all the juice I can get out of it. But now I need to have these outcomes. And you're going to look at these pre-trained agents that can do these things, like the AR agent or the AP agent. You're not going to build your own AP agent. Like every CEO in the country isn't going to build their own AP agent at some point. They're just going to sort of expect that to be done. There'll probably be a plethora of products, and almost like there's sort of two words. There's an enshittification, where you're going to get a lot of crappy vibe coded software out there, and we're seeing that now, but almost a main streetification, where previously it was like everybody bought QuickBooks. That was it. You might have 20 options for accounting software. You might have like accounting software for roofers or something, or that's super specific to your niche now, but you may still end up finding yourself wanting to just buy that rather than like vibe code your crappier alternative.
Yeah, which is amazing, ultimately, because you're like, and that's where kind of pricing comes in to like find that threshold. They're like, yeah, I could get to, phase 7 with Claude Code on this before I tap out in 3 weeks, or I could just pay $300 for the year. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that come up from what you said. One of my favorite questions to ask founders is, okay, cool, you're building your company, but like, what side projects are you working on right now? And every single one has this little precious baby that they're experimenting with all the tools, because maybe 20, 30% of founders are probably technical and they really have their hands on the product. But I would say the majority of the folks I talk to come from like sales, and they're kind of the talking head, spokesman, CEO type for the company. And being that kind of person myself, I'm probably a designer most by trade and a sales guy. Don't get it twisted. But you always had like a little bit of like anxiety and FOMO about the coders. Like, God dang it, I'm tethered to these guys. I have to have these guys. I'm going to go do my own thing. And so now they have all these like little pet projects that they can try and bring forward. And it is interesting. And I talk to them about these projects, and they're maybe on project 4 or 5, because, you really do need actual technical domain and expertise to kind of bring something quality forward at some point, And it is funny working with Claude Code in particular, because they set the bar really low. First couple of phases of deployment, it's like, oh, cool, look at, I'm doing it. And then you get into that phase 6, 7, you're like, oh boy, It's asking me some tough questions. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, your bar is always lower. So I always laugh about this because we see this internally. Business person will make their tool and then like I'll point out a bug that they would have like crucified me over, right? Oh, look, in mobile, the button's not visible. And they're like, oh, well, I just vibe coded it. Don't worry about it. I was like, oh, I wish I could say that to people. Like, oh, don't worry about that. There's a quality that we engineers kind of try and uphold. And that's the part that I talk about, the like crappier version of the thing. It's sort of like watching a bootleg movie when you were a kid. It's like you deal with the fact that it was a guy with a camcorder sitting in the theater. And that's fine for a little while. But then if you have 20 of these things and someone goes, oh, well, I can't reset my password in this one. Suddenly you, the sales guy that built this thing, gets more sales. You're super busy. Ideally, you became more productive as a result of the tools. And now you're like, well, I don't have time to fix the broken thing. And so I would caution, I think that's also going to happen. Businesses are going to have 20, 30 different tools that maybe were vibe coded very unprofessionally. And then they start to run into bugs in those tools and maintenance issues in those tools. And they go, maybe we need a professional to bring it all together because we actually have to do our day jobs now that we were being paid to do at this place.
And it's happening right now because, 6 months ago, everyone, CEOs are like, okay, gather around. Here's Claude subscriptions and GPT subscriptions for everybody. Go ham. Let's figure out what we can do, blah, blah, blah. So out of 100 people in that company, 10 of them took it seriously and they all made like 5 or 6 different agents. And so now, you're looking at alignment within the team of your staff of 100. And then there's also 50 agents out there burning tokens and nobody really knows what they're doing. And so they're starting to reel them back. Like, hey, wait, what did you make? And they're like, oh, well, I spent 2 weeks making a Whisper Flow knockoff. And it's like, yeah, but Whisper Flow is free. Like, why'd you do that? Well, I was just experimenting with XYZ. So like now they're starting to pull back these experiments and starting to see, okay, which one of these are going to stick, which one of these are going to land. And, maybe the promise of 6 months ago, it's changed so much. So it's like, oh, you can make all your internal tools. And sure, you can, but these things break all the time. So to your point, it's like, there was a great meme that was like, hey, I haven't seen like any reduction in time spent with AI tools. Or everyone was scared that like AI was going to take jobs, and there's absolutely no data that's supporting us taking anybody's tools. If I'm a model, I'm working at least 20 or 30% more hours with the AI stuff, largely because it's so fun and the capacity that you can do with it. But, you really do have to babysit all this stuff. So again, there's going to be a handoff. If there is great opportunity to make MVPs and things like that, you're still going to need a fractional CTO. You're still going to need maybe an agency that can be like, okay, you've got a great base here. Let's polish this thing up and we'll maintain it for you in perpetuity as long as you're using it.
Well, and a pro designer, a pro product manager, right? Their job is to look at people's workflows and come up with the software that makes it better. And sometimes like a person doing the job thinks that they're going to suddenly be the better designer of the workflow. But the pros do understand and have seen more of this stuff. So at some point they kind of vibe code a thing and they go, it's not what I pictured. It's not what I wanted it to be. And a UX designer would have been able to come in with their experience and say, oh, I've seen a workflow like this before. Let me show you something. And that's kind of the piece that people forget. But, the cool part is there's a lot more interest in software. And so what I find is people get on Lovable and they almost sell themselves on hiring an agency like ours because the cost is definitely lower than it's ever been. We definitely get things shipped faster. Things are taking months instead of years or weeks instead of months. But you also get the expertise of UX and product people that can help look at these workflows and make it a tool that you actually want to use and not kind of just a toy.
100%. I love it. So I wanted to talk about kind of what you guys do in media, because you guys are cranking out really good stuff and you have an amazing YouTube channel, 160 some thousand subs, which is incredible. Anybody who's trying to build on YouTube knows how hard it is. It's my most challenging platform. I just got my 500th subscriber. I'm like, boy, we're in business now. But I'm curious, like, why kind of media and putting yourself out there. Kind of founder-led marketing has been important for you guys and why you continue to do it. I know you also build communities and do meetups. You're very active. How has that kind of impacted the business?
One of the things that I think, and it piggybacks off of what you guys were just talking about, which is, the Prime engine, shout out to Prime for coining this. It's not my term, but it applies right here, is toxic productivity. And it's like just spinning the wheels, doing something every day, all hours of the day on the back of AI, just because you have the tools and you feel more powerful than ever to just create. And so there's a balance there. And my struggle over the years has been experiment and exploit. So find the things. We run tons and tons of different experiments, one of which is the media side of the business. I'm a firm believer. And if you follow any of the big entrepreneur leaders these days, I'm thinking like Grant Cardone or Alex Hormozy or Gary Vaynerchuk or, any one of these guys that are really imploring businesses to think about it differently. Every business is really a media house and a content creator. And if you think about it, distribution really leads the way for everything. We were talking about this a moment ago. The ones that are really qualified in Mike's continuum are the ones that really have seat at the table already. They have domain expertise. Distribution is not necessarily built in for the long haul, but it's built in for zero to market. And so this was always in my brain. My responsibility here at the business is to run these experiments, figure out our product motion, figure out where our next customer is going to come from, and what is the value that we have in the world. Mike and I are also just fast talking Long Islanders and just want to share our story. And we created this podcast a long time ago just to share our suffering with whoever wanted to hear it. That was 5 years ago. Mike and I just decided hey, there's this little platform out there called Riverside. It was before Riverside even distributed video. And our first podcasts, I think the first 7 episodes were straight audio. They're still on Spotify today. And it was really just, we wanted to create a catalog of our experience. We were going through some transformation. We had just left the full-time jobs. There was just a lot to catalog for ourselves. We were hey, if nobody's listening, at least we'll have the story on record. Eventually that becomes hard because there's lots of work to do. Mike is still a hands-on keyboard. Cutting episodes 5 years ago is not what it is today, just as far as speed and the ability to produce. And so that turned into me and my side quest and left Mike kind of out of the equation for a little while. And it was me interviewing our customers, the ones that would come through our studios, my immediate network of successful people, mostly founders or operators, and my general curiosity. I wanted to just give people value. Well, you can imagine, with the volume of content that we were putting out, I ran out of customers to be able to create shows out of. So we started to open this up to just general practitioners, founders that are in the space, different categories that I'm interested in. I have a sweet spot because the pain in this category is incredible, which is CPG, specifically food and beverage. I just man, those guys are gluttons for punishment. And so for me, it was really about getting the story. And I really wanted to acquire shared struggle and earn wisdom. And I see you holding your cup from Hampton, shout out to Hampton and all these different networking groups. And that was really what this was about, was shared wisdom. And I wanted to learn from other operators and make less mistakes, because Mike and I have made lots of mistakes. We could talk about that if you would like to. And this was really just about accumulating knowledge, but distributing it to anybody else that really gave a damn and wanted to reduce their potential for making mistakes. Where this really kind of elevated was it started to get some traction. Took years, I'm talking hundreds of episodes of me just cranking on this thing, just solo mission. And it would start to get some traction, a couple thousand subscribers, and people were starting to talk about it, and we get recognition for it. And at the beginning of this year, Mike and I were you know what? Let's just record every day. And so the volume game really started to catch up to us. And this year, no bullshit, you hear about it. Since January, we went from 7,000 subscribers to 160,000 plus. And I don't know what that's about, except the attribution to just quantity. And we just ship, man, just the way that we run the business. We just ship. We put out content that's created from our brains and no filter, and we just pull the trigger on a daily basis. And that just seems to be the type of content that people want, is just that raw, the natural dance moves between me and Mike and our friendship, and we hold each other accountable and make each other feel uncomfortable. And it's just the way that our relationship is. And I think people really eat that up. And so it's been a really cool journey. It's not so easy.
It's the shorts. You know what you forgot, Justin, which was the original Take Back Tomorrow, which was, we had done these before podcasting was even big. When we were a t-shirt company, we did written interviews. We would we would email people a written interview, and we found that people would just do this, like famous athletes that we looked up to. And we were like, oh my God. So we were using that. We were kind of always on this thread of using that type of marketing, even before the podcast. And if you go all the way back in Strictly From Nowhere on our website, there are written interviews like way at the bottom from like, I think it was Tommy Caldwell at the time. We had a bunch of like the climbers and stuff that we were looked up to that ended up and that still get traffic to the site, which is kind of cool. So now it's like, should we go back and do video interview and make it part of the podcast?
Yeah. It's always been an experiment in influencer marketing. That's always been the experiment. Fame jacking, exploit people's reach, get into new networks. It's also like the greatest sales conversation in disguise. Sales is all based on relationship. I love giving value to people and being part of their story. Distribution is key for everybody. So everybody's always looking for amplification for what they're doing. So to me, this was just like, what is the easiest path to folks getting on a phone call with you?
Yeah.
And I implore anybody that's interested in starting a podcast, try and sell your first episode first. Try and get your first guest first. It's the easiest sale that I've ever done. I'm not asking for anything except for somebody's time. There's no cash exchange. There's no commitment. I have the proof. And so this has really become an integral part to our situation. It also kind of leads to the other things. Like, it's not just a media house based on the podcast. It's also about social syndication. It's about our newsletter, which is strong, 10,000 strong. This is about social media presence and sharing our thought leadership outside of the podcast. This is about in-person community meetups. We run Long Island Technologists to bring people together because I'm a firm believer that in the age of AI, people are craving person-to-person combat. And so all of these things, like, just, yes, we are an agency, and what we do professionally is build software for people that can't build it themselves. But I'm also responsible for the culture around this as well. And like, I really feel like I'm pulled towards this. It's something I often am confronted with. Like, is this my purpose? Like, do I really need to just like fall off the cliff and become social media influencer? Like, is that really the thing here? Or is this just a means to the thing that we deliver most value to in the world, which is building software for people? Both of those things are in a relationship. And so it's enjoyable. We do a lot of experimentation. I kill a lot of things pretty quickly. I think one of the superpowers that Mike and I possess, which is the thing that we talk about most with our customers, is work from the goal backwards. And like, what are the things that I need to do in order to achieve that goal, right? In an age where I can build anything and everything relatively rapidly, it's really about accumulating the data from failure. I want to just try the least amount of things that I can do in order to catch the signal for that experiment. And so we kill more things than we release, but some things just take time. Like, some things are just, you got to stick with it. The newsletter is a good example. The podcast is a good example. The Long Island Technologist meetup is a good example. It's taken years. Like, it looks like it's overnight success, and in some cases it just pops and it's great, but like, it took years of committing to these things with no signal, just passion, just gut feeling, just like, hey, this is scalable and maintainable and sustainable. And, you know, so sometimes it's not so clear, and you kind of run towards passion fueled by the opportunity.
I love that. So you kind of envisioning kind of the end result, and then reverse engineering the steps to get it there. If you're out there, you guys are presenting yourselves every day. How do you want people to perceive you with all this media you're putting out?
Yeah, I think, you know, I would say that our goals are probably unique, but also aligned. The end goal is to build this package of a business. You can't just be like, in our business, you can't just be like one trick pony niche. And so what do people want from us is also the things that we ship and deliver. So we're an evolving business. I want to be synonymous with the greatest engineering team on the planet. Like, when people think of the best software engineering motion on the planet, I want them to think of Cause of a Kind. Like, when you think, if you're thinking about agencies that exist in the world, there are name brands that come to mind. If you're intimate with this industry, like, there are household name brands in the agency world that have really done it, that are synonymous with that. Why not us? Like, why not me? Like, those guys that are founders have been on the podcast. We've been in competitive bids with them. They're just human, right? They have little kids just like I do. They're just regular people. So what was their magic? I think we have the magic. So my goal is to think about what are the least amount of things that we can fail at to get to that goal. But this is all experimentation. If you meet with any of those people that have been super successful, it's 95% failure. But the 5% that's successful is the stuff that you see, and it catapults them to success. And so I would assume that Mike's goals are maybe a little bit different, but it all really is towards this goal of being recognizable in the industry, where people are coming to us for our domain expertise, that I don't have to go to them. It's less cold outreach. It's less exploiting the network. It's less selling your soul to the algorithm. It's more, hey, I know I want those guys for their expertise, for their personality, for their camaraderie, for the proof that they have of shipping for this long.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would be my goal.
Super important, and that really comes through, ultimately, like, you guys are great guys. You're cool. You're normal. You're approachable. And, particularly when you're in kind of startup land, like, there's just a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of fast talkers. There's a lot of shops that open up and close down and move it all around. So I think that it really does work to your advantage. Plus, a couple other takeaways I had. All that might just be a rationalization, because I also kind of connect with you guys. Like, I never shut up, so I might as well record it, because I'm going to be doing it anyway.
Right. That's right. That's literally right.
And I also like what you said about being the best in the world. And I think a lot of people should take a sober look at that, about what they're working on. Do you have the ability to be the best in the world? Because if not, why even try? As for example, I would never try and make grape jelly, because Welch's already nailed it. Like, it's done. It's done. You're not going to beat Welch's. I'm sorry. So what's the point? It's like, point in the direction where you can, and you hold yourself to that expectation. I'm going to be the best in the world at this. Everyone else comes after me. I'm going to execute at such a high level, no one can compete. And to have that edge, like, literally, I think it's the biggest differentiator from founders that succeed and the ones that don't. It's like, you want to get into a market where you can be middling. No way, man. Right. We're not here to take part. We're here to take over.
That's right.
Yep.
We were walking through downtown Manhattan yesterday, Meatpacking District specifically, and Mike and I were having this conversation. There is infinite space for mastery, infinite space for the best brands in the world to exist. You walk you walk through Lower Manhattan, you go through Soho. There are 8 million different, let's say, handbag companies or apparel brands or shoe companies or athletic wear or whatever, man. The ones that survive, that get to put their bid in Soho and like withstand the test of time, all of them were in pursuit of absolute mastery. There was some type of delusional confidence and a feedback loop from customers that said you deserve to exist. But how many didn't even make it out of the innovation stage, the idea stage? And so there's a game to this, right? Like, Mike and I tell each other on a daily basis that we're the best in the world. That's like absolute delusional, absolute focus on our game. We often have a saying, keep your eyes on the road, otherwise you're hitting the barrier. And so I don't know what everybody else is doing. I know that there are playbooks for successful businesses that we want to emulate, but like, you have to be a little bit nuts in the world. And that's also our pursuit. That's what my customers want from me. My customers don't want to say, oh, that shop could have done it better. They want to know that the guy that they selected is absolutely a psychopath about the quality that he produces. And that is constantly pursuing education, that wants to be the best, that's at the forefront, that's talking at the conferences, that's putting out the content. This is what we eat and breathe. Not to mention, I'm fully fucking leveraged, bro. Like, my house is on the line here. Truly. So is Mike's. And so when we went all in, got the hospital for special surgery deal that Mike was talking about, yeah, that was the impetus, but it was also like, fuck, I'm going to take out a $500,000 SBA loan and there's no looking back. I burned the boat.
Yeah.
And so somewhere along the line, those are the types of guys you want to work with and gals you want to work with, the ones that fully committed their entire future to helping and serving you. And so that like delusion of us trying to be the best in the world, why else do this? Because this hurts. This is painful. And any founder that's on their way, that's making it, that's really struggled, that has had trials and tribulations, it's why I made the podcast in the first place. The only way to continue to show up every day is to be delusional, because this is the hard path. This is not easier. It's much easier to go and get a job. I've had the job. I know it's easier.
Let's go. You get me fired up.
Me too.
You ever heard about the Cheyenne dog soldiers?
No. Have you? Met? No.
I'll share with you a great story. I'm a bit of an amateur historian about the Old West, particularly in Colorado, since I am a Colorado boy.
Amazing.
But, here we had the Cheyenne, we had the Arapaho, we had probably the Lakota up to the north, various plains tribes that kind of nestled in against the Rocky Mountains here. But there's this legendary story about the Cheyenne dog soldiers when they would be outnumbered by an opponent. I believe in this case it was the Lakota. So they're in their village, and the Lakota start running their horses around the encampment, basically just letting them know, we're here, we're coming for you. And so, they have a little bit of time to gather themselves before they have to go into battle. They see that they're hopelessly outnumbered. And so what they do is there's a post that's buried in the ground. They tie a rope to it. To the end of those posts, they tied 2 prongs with a piece of buffalo bone. They pierce their chest and put the bone through it and loop the rope onto it, which is on this basically fork in the ground. What they're saying is, you come to us. We're right here, and we can't move around. We're staying right here. And so they just pierce themselves to this log all the way around. The Lakotas are running around. They're like, these guys are out of their mind.
Yeah, crazy.
We're out of here. And so they left. And so they won the battle by showing unbelievable bravery in the face of incredible odds, and this, ever since I was, a musician and making records and what should I say? Being a little bit afraid to put myself out there, I always looked to that for inspiration, which is no, I'm right here. You want to see what's up with me? You can come and find out. I'm right here. And it's given me just, I think, a little bit of inspiration and power, which ultimately I think what you guys do is put yourself out there to say hey man, if you have any questions of who I am or what I'm about, I'm right here. Ask anybody, And I think in this day and time, it can be possibly the number one differentiator between you and a potential competitor is oh man, I know Justin and Mike because I watch them every morning,
Yep.
That's right.
And you work with who you like. That's right. One thing I always think about. I even think about that with the recent, AI. Let's just say the AI companies. We've seen this happen where there was a period of time, I want to say a year ago, people were kind of I'm not a big fan of that Sam Altman guy. Everyone was all in on Anthropic. And then Dario says, we're going to get rid of 50% of jobs and there's a 20% chance we destroy the world. And then all of a sudden, I don't really like that guy anymore. And your choices start to get affected because when you have multiple products that are kind of the same thing, really, people have the only thing left is, who do I like? When you're in an agency, there are tons of us, and the price points are all over the map. You could get an agency that charges you next to nothing, agency that'll charge you millions of dollars for the exact same thing. It's bottled water, right? Bottled water in the stadium versus bottled water on the side of the highway. They cost different prices, same exact product. The thing that starts to happen, and when you start to realize about the marketing and work, is the relationship being personal. Do you like us? Because ultimately, that's really what's making your choice. We can match most price points. Sure, we can build it to that price point, to this. Everybody can be at all these different places, but there's all these things that happen, and ultimately, I do think that the decision really becomes an emotional one.
Yeah. Amazing. We got a couple of minutes left here, and I want to talk about your dedication to charitable organizations. You had a t-shirt company supporting them, just opening up before we hit record. There's just a whole litany of different charitable causes you guys support. So talk a little bit about that and why that's important in your company and in your life.
It is important to us, and we've seen lots of different ways in which that kind of comes back to the business. It's in the name. Cause of a kind. We're cause back and mission driven by just the work that we put out into the world. While I'm not a non-for-profit, and it is in my roadmap for life to be a founder of a non-for-profit and do some real good in the world, we definitely have a saturation of nonprofit customers here. That's just kind of what the name attracts. It's also the altruistic approach to creating great software for brands that have historically maybe been cash strapped or don't necessarily have the access to skill. That's always been a passion for us. What I'm mostly focused on is brands that are mission driven in their initiatives, not necessarily nonprofit. So sometimes that gets confused. However, we're powered by nonprofits. right? So like like we still are heavily appareled today. We're a brand first business. So like anything that we rock is produced by nonprofit organization. We call them Spectrum Designs. They're right here on Long Island with us. And they've been with us since the very beginning, since we were an apparel company. So shout out to spectrumdesigns.org. A couple of our customers are also truly nonprofit. One that comes to mind is Best Connections. This is an application that we have built over the last couple of years with a founder that has incredible domain expertise. She's an adjunct professor out in California for this specific topic, and she built a piece of software for those that are suffering and recovering from traumatic brain injury. And so we see lots of different non-for-profits that have come through our way. We did work for Lives and Livelihood Fund, with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation years ago. There's always, right? And we're always trying to figure out our way, coming back to either local organizations or ones with national reach. And of course, in our community and things that we've created, we watch people pursue non-for-profit as just something that is invigorating to people. The ability to create something that ultimately gives back and feels selfless and altruistic, and a reason to use money as a tool to help folks find their way. That's just inspiring. And so we love that. And I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch, but yeah, nonprofits and charitable organizations, mission-driven businesses, that all runs our world and probably what we're most passionate about.
I love it. You guys following what's going on with this mayoral campaign in LA with Spencer Pratt?
Very little. I got enough mayor troubles here in New York City.
Real.
I'm not saying I like or dislike. I'm just saying I got other shit to worry.
There's battle in the there's battle in the mayoral race everywhere. What's going on in LA?
Well, basically, he's putting up a fascinating campaign. Definitely check it out. And he's going out after Spencer Pratt's the guy from The Hills or whatever. He's like a reality guy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But his house burned down in those fires a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And Karen Bass is the incumbent. And she's basically pretty incompetent at her job, it looks like. And he's pointing out all the reasons why. But one thing that he's really making a sticking point is, kind of in the bluest of blue state there is, which is California. There's been a lot of like shenanigans about like a lot of the fire relief money getting funneled into these like kind of pop-up charities, and the money never reaching the people that needed it to rebuild. So, and I think this is a story that's kind of coming up more and more, where a lot of these nonprofits are just like weird money laundering programs for corrupt politicians. And I tell you, it breaks my heart, because there are such amazing people doing solid work that have incredible transparency, that are really needed, not to mention all the crackdown on the kind of grants and stuff coming from the White House this year. So, I'm very interested in this kind of stuff too, and like calling out people that need the support. Mission-driven businesses, in my opinion, are kind of like the best of all worlds. Because ultimately they're still responsible for their P&L. So if it works for the community, if it works for the planet, and it works in business, it's like, man, we got a great model here. So I'm hoping when people are seeing kind of what's going on, with politics and how all of this, there's all this kind of shenanigans, not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because truly there are great people out there doing great things. And Mike, I know you wanted to talk about Tim Tebow, and I will always take the moment to talk about the great Tim Tebow. Maybe let people know who don't understand kind of the work that he's doing right now, because it's really remarkable, and he's kind of like on the front lines.
Absolutely. Yeah. His foundation actually helps rescue kids that are in child trafficking. It's basically stuck in child trafficking. Apparently, I mean, it's a staggering number too. It's an insane amount of kids who are stuck in various states of trafficking. And I believe even his sister was rescued by his father, which is kind of the story which always kind of touched me. And it's so funny, because I knew him as the quarterback of the Denver Broncos when I used to live out in Fort Collins. And then I found out about this, and I was like, man, this is an incredible mission. And it's one of those places that, one of those organizations we aspire to be able to help or do something with someday in some capacity, because I've always kind of been impressed by people that can do that kind of work, because that work's incredibly difficult too. One of the things I knew, my father was a detective here in Nassau County, and he used to work in crimes against property. But in that office was the officer. It was like one detective who used to hunt down the child predators. And it takes an incredible toll on your psyche to do that work. And it was almost one of those positions that they used to say they have to like swap people out of, because you can't really keep doing it. And so when I think about people who have decided to dedicate their lives to that mission, knowing how difficult that is, that's incredible to me. It's incredibly selfless. So I've always looked at that organization as sort of like, wow, not only is this really good work, this is really hard work to wake up and do every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard him on a podcast talking about it. And in some cases, like, he actually was there as the guy, like, taking kids out of the room. I mean, I couldn't imagine if you're some guy in India doing God knows what, and Tim freaking Tebow walks in and is like, nope, not today. Like,
Yep,
unbelievable.
Incredible. That's why I said I think it takes an incredible amount of faith too to do something like that. I know he's a faith-driven person, because you really have to know you're doing work that's so hard on you as a human, and kind of draw the strength from somewhere else. And I think that's just an incredible story.
100%. Yeah. Shout out to Tim Tebow. I love that guy. And I love you guys for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Before I kind of give credits, I got a question as a podcaster.
Sure.
I added this backing light back here. What do you think? Do you like that? Does that add a little something?
I got one too, man.
Just as big on the light. I got to figure out my lighting situation. You guys both have cool lights.
It was from the first time we talked, Justin. I was like, man, I need to step my game up. What's going on with this background?
Right. Now you need an Aurora Borealis.
I know. I love it. It's it's psychedelic. It's great.
Yeah, it's a homage to my EDM days. I've left those behind, but now we rage in the studio,
Need to get some glow sticks going and just do like those finger flashlights or whatever.
Yeah, we'll put on the laser show. Now you can see the laser show. Everything's just a click away. Super fun.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, please check out causeofakind.com to check out the fantastic business you guys have put together. There is a podcast tab there that will take you to all of the media they're putting out. I mean, the long form interviews are fantastic, and then the shorts are really solid too. So kudos on that. I have a lot to learn from what you guys are doing on YouTube, and I plan on implementing that very soon. So, Justin, Mike, thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Every founder I know is posting on LinkedIn, grinding on X, maybe dabbling in short form video. And the dirty secret nobody wants to say out loud is you don't own any of it. One algorithm change and your audience evaporates overnight. The only audience you actually own is your email list. That's why the smartest founders in the world are building newsletters, and Inbox Alchemy builds it for you. They create your weekly founder newsletter, design a beautiful newsletter website, and grow your audience to 25,000 subscribers in the first 6 months. All of it is managed so it drives real pipeline. It builds your reputation, it nurtures the relationships that turns into deals, partnerships, and opportunities you can't even predict yet. Social is rented, email is owned. The founders who figured that out early win for decades. Go to inboxalchemy.co, that's inboxalchemy.co, and start building the audience that's actually yours. What if you had a partnership manager working for your podcast full-time, reaching out to brands, securing deals, handling all the back and forth while you just focused on making great content? That's Casey. Casey is the AI partnership agent from Howdy who actually goes out and gets your sponsors. Casey reaches out to brands on your behalf, works the conversation, and lands the partnership. You make the show, Casey makes the money. And look, Casey doesn't sleep, she doesn't lose track of follow-ups, and she never gets discouraged by a non-reply. Casey's out there right now working for podcasters who figured this out before you did. The only question is whether your show has a Casey yet. So go meet Casey at gethowdy.com. That's GETHOWDI.com. Takes a couple of minutes to get started, and Casey gets to work immediately. That's gethowdy.com. In 3 years, AI fluency will be a baseline expectation for every college grad, not a differentiator, it'll be a requirement. The students getting ahead are the ones building that skill right now, in high school and college, before it becomes table stakes. AINativeStudent.com is the program doing that, weekly one-on-one coaching, live cohort sessions, on-demand courses, and the fastest growing AI chat for students, all tailored to your student's specific career path. Pre-med, they learn how AI is transforming diagnostics. Pre-law, they learn legal AI tools. Business, they learn to think like an AI power operator. One flat membership, less than a private tutor, cancel anytime, and if you're a founder listening to the show, you already know the cost of falling behind. Don't let your kid pay that price. Go to AInativestudent.com, apply in a couple minutes, and get your student into the cohort that changes their trajectory. AInativestudent.com and send them to the chat. It's totally free.